So thank you for coming and speaking to us about your life experiences. The first question we have for you is how did you get into the path that you are on, and how did you end up becoming an energy healer?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Um, well, it started, I would say, about 30 years ago when I was really searching for something different. I had always, even as a child, always felt that there must be something else to life than just getting a job, having a house, having a family. There's got to be something beyond that. So I was always looking, and so 30 years ago, I became a Bhakti yoga um, practitioner, and I lived in ashrams. I was a monk for 7 years, and this was the beginning of my spiritual journey. And then, about 15 years ago, I had a really interesting experience, to say the least. This was my psychic awakening, if you can call it this way. I went to the hospital to see a good friend of mine that had a traumatic. He had a traumatic accident and was in a coma. So what happened is I went into the room and I was alone with him and I was talking with him. And at one point I just like touched his hand, and it was like I could hear him talking to me back, even though he couldn't talk. He was in a coma. And so we had this long conversation, and I was counseling him because he was afraid of coming back into his body. And when I got home after that, I laid down in my bed and I felt, because his body was inflated because of the traumatic injury. There was a lot of fluid in his body. And I laid down in my bed and I felt like my body was like inflated. So it was a little scary. So I called a friend of mine who is a mystic, and she said, "Well, I don't know where you are, but you're not in your body." So I thought, okay, well, how do I get out? And how I got in. So she told me that I had entered into his energy body and his physical body. So she said, well, it seems like you're being called to do this work. So she trained me. She gave me a crash course on energies and understanding my physical body, energy body, other people's energies, and how to go in and how to come out, always with permission. I didn't know that at the beginning. So that's kind of how it started. But then I took at least about 3 years of more training and working on my own self before I worked on anyone else. So that's kind of how it started.
And so how does it work? You mentioned things that people in ordinary life don't experience.
That's true.
And so for somebody who is the average Joe, who is, going out for his or her daily grind, this seems like spooky stuff.
Well, it's
Eh,
definitely, it's interesting you're mentioning those words because I have a lot of my clients who come to me who had psychic awakening. And it's like, it's become a cliche among us, kind of like, I know it sounds crazy, but there's even memes about it. Like we think, I think I'm going crazy or I'm losing my mind. It's just because it's a different reality. And most of us experience that reality in dreams when we're asleep, and we don't actually realize that we're in a different realm when we're sleeping. And so everyone experiences it, but we're not usually experiencing it while we're awake.
right.
That's the main difference. Just to get the spooky out of the way, everybody dreams, right?
Yeah, let's unpack that. When people dream, it's such a everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
If they're having a nightmare, they wake up, it's like, phew, it was a nightmare. If they have a beautiful dream, they wake up and say, wow. But people don't enter other people's energy realms or subtle bodies. And we also need to unpack what that means. Like, what does a subtle body mean?
Well, the subtle body, so a lot of time when you think about, like we all talk about the mind. So most people think that the mind is in the brain, but actually the mind is all around us. It's an energy. And so, according to the Vedas, the mind's functions are thinking, feeling, and willing or desiring. So, those things are not something you see, but we do experience it. And so, there's a whole other subtle realm. Even when you think about creation, for example, like let's say I want to build a house. What needs to come first? I'm asking you.
A blueprint and a foundation.
You need an idea.
Okay.
Like, what do you want your house to look? So, first it starts with a thought. Then somebody has to put the thought into paper. Someone who actually knows about how to draw so that you can build and it'll be solid, right? So this is the process of creation. It always starts first with the mind, and then it's produced through the body into the physical. But once you understand that we are at the essence spirits or a soul, and the soul is expanded just like the sun with consciousness. So I don't know if you've ever had a surgery before. Never. Look at lucky you. So I've went through surgery before, and basically you go under anesthesia, so you're no longer conscious, and they can cut part of your body, and you feel absolutely nothing. So that's the proof that we actually don't feel through the body. We feel through our minds, not the body. But people don't see those things, you know. It's you kind of have, like you said, we have to unpack it and understand it in a very, you know, what's the word, systematic way. Because I find a lot of time with my clients, once they start to understand how their mind function and how it functions in the body and how the world, you know, works, um, basically once you have knowledge, a lot of time it just calms everything down. Without knowledge, like ignorance brings us fear because we don't know, it's the unknown. But once you understand what it is, it's just everything, the whole myth is dismissed, and you can actually be comfortable and understanding that I have a purpose to live here. And until I live that purpose, I'm not going anywhere. So why should I be afraid of dying, for example, right? So once you understand these processes, then it takes away a lot of the fear and a lot of the confusion and a lot of the mental illnesses that we're dealing with today.
But you would recommend that people still go for conventional treatment and not take this and take this as a add-on or take this as something. Is this something that people should follow when they're in an emergency, for example?
Well, I mean, personally, I don't like to recommend. I actually just let people make their own choices. So people who come to me usually want something different. And uh, I think everyone should be free to make their own decision according to where they are and their own belief and what they feel like, that what they trust. So I don't really recommend anything, but at the same time, it is something that's very helpful because I teach literally 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds how to be able to use their minds. People don't realize the power of imagination. And unfortunately, nowadays with the technology, a lot of time it's taking away the children's imagination, which is usual. This is how, because your imagination is your creative power, and the children can actually change their mood much quicker than an adult. Literally, I'll have like a 4-year-old go in, close their eyes, tune in within, and then they'll tell me, I see everything is black and it's really damp. So if it's a girl, well, depending on, I'll see what the child likes. I'll say, well, you just take there, you have now a magic wand in your hand. So just go ahead and just change the color and change the smell of inside. And they'll just go and do it and have so much fun. And they'll go, I feel so much better. And I literally feel that now they're happy. It's quite incredible. But that's the power of the mind. And people don't understand that because what's the word? We're conditioned to be miserable. Let's face it. So if I say to someone, you can choose to be happy, they'll go, no, that's not possible. But if I say something to you, something rude, within seconds, you'll be angry. So why can't you, in a second, be happy? It's just we're not conditioned that way. But it is that easy. So hopefully that answer your question.
Thank you. Thank you.